Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be taking a look at some of our favorite things, story problems. So you need that guided note sheet that has the story problems already written out on it, as well as a calculator today, because we know in story problem situations, sometimes the numbers aren't always nice little integer values. We may end up working with some decimals today. And something to write with, of course, and then we're going to go ahead and glue these story problems into your notes here as a way to kind of keep track of what you're doing. So my goal for you today is to remember our learning targets and remember what we're trying to do here. And you need to be sure that you're aware that these are standards that we need to accomplish. We need to be able to solve systems of linear equations exactly and approximately using graphs. We've done that, but we need to focus on solving a system and how to do that. And sometimes we need to be able to create the equations ourselves. And that's a part of this other standard here, where we need to come up with the equations based on a context and then use our skills to go ahead and solve them. So for this, we're going to take a look at some story problems because they require us to create some equations ourselves. So let's take a look at this first example. You and some friends decide to go see a movie. Luckily, your friend has a gift card to use on the concessions at the Grand Theater. The concession signs are down, but the person working tells you that you can buy 2 popcorns and 2 drinks for $18, or you can buy 1 popcorn and 3 drinks for $16.50. And the question we need to answer is then, how much does each item cost? So we're curious about the cost of these items. So anytime you go about solving a story problem, one of the first things you need to do is obviously read the story problem, right? And pick out the important information, but identify what it is that you're trying to find. So I always end up looking back at that last statement right after I'm done reading it again. How much does each item cost? So we're not trying to find how many of each we're going to buy or anything like that, but the cost. And then we need to set up some variables to represent it. So maybe we're going to let x equal the cost of popcorn. And then maybe we're going to let y equal the cost of the drinks. So we first identify what it is that we're trying to find, and so we can remember that when we go about setting up our 2 equations. So since we're trying to find 2 variables here, x and y, we're going to need 2 equations to make that happen. So let's go back through our story problem and see if we can find those 2 equations. It says we're going to the movies, we have concessions, the signs are down, all of that's nice, but it doesn't have any impact on our story problem. Let's get to where we see the numbers. 2 popcorns and 2 drinks cost $18. So if we were going to use our x and y that we've established here, we would do something like 2 times the cost of popcorn plus 2 times the cost of a drink equals $18. There's our first fact from our story problem. We can also buy 1 popcorn and 3 drinks for $16.50. So same idea, 1 plus 3y equals $16.50. And now this is a system of equations. We have 2 equations, 2 variables. And we know the tools, or we have those tools. We know what to do in order to go ahead and solve this situation. So we're going to go ahead and now, oops, my bad, let's go back. Now let's eliminate one of those variables. Maybe the x or the y, whichever one you want. I think I want to eliminate the x here, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply this bottom one here by -2. So the top one's going to stay the same, 2x plus 2y equals 18. The bottom one now becomes -2x, -6y, and then 1650 times -2. Okay, sometimes when we get these decimal values, don't be ashamed if you go ahead and type into your calculator to get that value just to be sure, because we've learned you don't want to make a silly mistake in the process here and then end up getting a wrong answer. And then you have to try to find your silly mistake. So now we're going to go ahead and add these 2 equations together again. So our x's are eliminated here, and we'd have -4y's, and then 18 minus 33, that's a -33 over there, is -15. And now we're going to divide by that -4, divide by -4. We have y equals 375. 3.75. And remember what we're trying to find. This is money. This is a cost. So it makes sense that I didn't get like a whole number value here. We got $3.75. That's fine. That's pretty typical in terms of money and concessions and cost of items. So we know the Y value. Now we need to go ahead and find the X value. And remember, just like before, we would go ahead and substitute that back in to one of our equations that we have here, maybe the top one here. So 2x plus 2 times the y, which we now know is 3.75, has to equal 18. So we'll go ahead and calculate in our calculators here. 2x plus 2 times that value of 375 is 750. Equals 18. Then we're going to subtract the 750 from the 18. And we get 1050. And then we'll go ahead and divide by 2. And we have x equals 525. So when we're all said and done, we want to make sure our answer makes sense. So we would say something like popcorn costs $5.25. And the drinks cost $3.75. Now, sometimes it's hard to remember what you're actually finding and what your labels would be here if you are not careful to identify those at the beginning. So that's why you saw me identifying those at the very beginning. Okay, let's look at another one. The Hamilton family is going on a Florida vacation. The cost for an amusement park for a day at an amusement park is $550 for the family, and the cost for a day on a family cruise is $800. The budget for the Hamilton family is $4,600 for a 7-day vacation. So how many days should they spend at each place? So how many days at the amusement parks and how many days on a family cruise? So we need to be thinking about what it is we're trying to find once again. So we're going to identify our x and y and what they equal. So x and y, let's let x be the days at the amusement park. Oh, spelling. Amusement park. Sorry, my writing's kind of crazy here. Amusement park. And then y are the days on the cruise. Okay, so we have days at the amusement park and days on the cruise. And that's what we're trying to find is how many days on each one. So we've identified that x and y, in fact, are going to be those answers. So let's look at our first fact. The cost for a day at amusement park is $550, and the cost for a day at the family cruise is $800. The budget for the Hamilton family is $4,600. So all of these are dollar values that we can think about together. So let's make one equation for that. So we would have $550 for a day at the amusement park, so that was X, plus $800 for a day on a cruise. And all of that has to be, that family's budget has to be considered. So at most, $4,600. So we've used all of our money facts. Now let's talk about that 7-day business. Remember that X and Y are days at the amusement park and days on the cruise. So if we add the days at the amusement park and days at the cruise, they have to equal 7 for the 7 total days on our vacation. So these are our two equations now that we're working with for our system, and we need to choose to eliminate a variable. So maybe let's eliminate the x's again. Noticing that I have a 550 in front of the x on top of my first line there, we'll go ahead and multiply by negative 550. So the top one's going to stay 550x plus 800y equals 4,600. And then we'd have 550x, this would be negative 550y, and then 7 times 550 would be negative 3,850. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add those two together. Our x's are eliminated. We'd have 800 now minus 550, because that 550 is negative. We'd have 250y And then 4,600 minus 3,850 gives me 750 in that column. And now we'll go ahead and divide by 250, divide by 250. It says y equals 3. I'm going to put a box around that. Y is 3. Now, if x and y are what we're trying to find, and y is 3, I'm going to go ahead and plug it into that equation there that says x plus y has to equal 7. So x plus 3 has to equal 7. So x has to equal 4. That makes sense because we had a 7-day vacation and we just found out how many days, remember, at each event or on each part of our vacation. So to finish up our answer, we would say we would spend 4 days at the amusement park and 3 days on the cruise. Okay, so we've solved a story problem or 2 story problems today using our knowledge about systems of equations. Of course, the hardest part is being able to set them up, but that comes with practice. So I want to thank you today for taking great notes.